Two of the top physical attacking heroes in the game go head-to-head in this video.
It's only a game. Why you have to be mad?
What is up, heroes of Dominion? My name is Charlie. This is Hero Wars Central, and in today's video, I want to discuss, compare, and contrast Qing, who is currently an event hero on the mobile version of the game, with another damage-dealing hero, and that is Keira. They're both very similar in position. One is a marksman, or markswoman, I guess. The other is a warrior. But before we get into it, I want to remind you all that I do Hero Wars informational, educational videos for new players, mid-tier, and occasionally some high-level stuff. But as a new player, you might have just gotten access to Qing and Keira, and both of them are relatively easy to get. And I wanted to compare and contrast them from an effectiveness utility point of view. As they both seem to fill a similar role, but they actually don't. And I'll get into it what I mean by that in just a little bit. So first of all, both of these heroes are physical attacking heroes. Both of these are great standalone. Both of these are great in the right team. You see both of these heroes at competitive high-end gameplay. Neither one of these heroes are bad investments. So they're definitely worth getting into. And, you know, if you love Qing or if you love Keira, then you should absolutely jump into it. But I wanted to contrast them a little bit in this video. So first, let's talk a little bit about their skills. So we have Qing, the ultimate. This is a pushback. This hits 3 times, pushing the enemy tank back 3 times, dealing some damage. It's a low damaging ability in the grand scheme of ultimate abilities, but the main point of it is the damage over time and the control of the pushback. And the reason why this is important, pushing back the enemy tank exposes the second hero on the enemy team. Now, if you're going up against a Keira, for example, this would expose an enemy Keira, if that Keira is in the second position, I should say. We have Spear of Dawn, which is a blind for the front row, and blind mechanically will prevent physical attacks from hitting you, okay? During that 3-minute window, all physical attacks made towards your team from that front line will miss, all right? A little bit of damage, not much, but there is a blind there. And then we have this. This does absolute straight damage to the enemy's health total. This does not care about any sort of damage mitigation at all. Armor penetration doesn't matter. Armor doesn't matter. Magic damage, magic penetration, magic defense doesn't matter. This is straight to the enemy's health total. And this is very effective against bosses. This is very effective against enemy tanks. And then we have Open Heart. All heroes' violet abilities are passive, and Qing passive ability will reduce the enemy target's armor with every attack. To be clear, this is basic attacks usually. Some of the other attacks matter as well, but this will reduce the overall armor of a single target. Again, usually that frontline tank, that high health, high armor, tank out front, and this will over time degrade that hero's defenses. Contrast that with Keira. We have Blade Whirlwind, which is an area of effect attack. It does silence, but it does hit every enemy on the enemy team. Okay, it hits every enemy on the enemy team twice. We have the green ability, which will speed up Keira. We have the blue ability, which will cause her basic attacks to hit every enemy on the enemy side. And then we have the violet ability, and this is their passive ability. If Keira's armor penetration is higher than the enemy's armor, her basic attack deals extra damage. This, of course, stacks with Dancing Blades. And, if she's attacking faster with Enraged Soul, all the better. So just a quick glance before we start jumping into the actual numbers and stats. Qing has a little bit more control abilities. She's got a pushback, which is effective at exposing your enemy's squishy midline. She has a blind. She has an armor debuff, and then she does have this pure damage attack. Keira has this silence, sure, but the majority of her abilities are all about dealing as much damage as quickly as possible. Both of these heroes deal effective damage very well, but they go about it differently. All right, so when you're building a team, when you're trying to build a team, you're gonna see Qing with another damage dealer, like with Keira. Okay, you're not gonna usually see Qing by herself. But sometimes you do, But towards the middle of the game, towards the end game, as you level up your heroes, Qing Mao is utilized more for armor reduction and control than she is for actual pure damage output. Capitalizing on that, or not capitalizing, but expanding upon that, all heroes have an artifact weapon, and an artifact weapon has an ability that will buff your entire team whenever that hero's ultimate or gray ability is used. Qing Mao provides armor penetration for your entire team. You want your physical attacking team, if you have a physical attacking team, I should say, to have as much armor penetration as possible. So whenever Qing Mao activates Qing Long, your whole team is going to get armor penetration. This is a fantastic buff for another hero that needs it. Well, one of Keira's primary abilities really cares that her armor penetration is higher than the enemy's armor. So if you have a hero like Qing Mao who's boosting Keira's armor penetration even higher, then this is going to, trigger more often. This ability is going to trigger more often. This is a little bit more evidence to the fact that, again, Qing Mao is more of a support role than Keira is a damage role. Let's talk a little bit about the stats and everything coming up next. So the first thing to get out of the way is the fact that both of these heroes really love physical attack as a stat. Their main stat being agility contributes a ton of armor and physical attack to them as a whole, but all of their abilities that care about all of their abilities that care about having a modifier are modified by physical attack. So the rest of this stuff, the magic attack, the magic defense, the armor, the health, all of that other stuff doesn't really matter as much when we're trying to compare and contrast these two. It is important to note that having armor is important. Keira does have slightly more armor, but to compensate for that, Qing Mao does have dodge, and Keira doesn't dodge at all. Magic defense, they're roughly the same. Magic attack, who really cares? But they're they have about the same. They have about the same strength. And with health, Qing Mao has considerably more health. It's probably, I don't really want to get into that here. That doesn't really matter. What does matter is the physical attack stat. Now, when it comes down to absolute totals, and these are screenshots from the Hero Wars calculator modified to be the mobile version of the game. I could be a couple of stat points off here or there, but this is going to be a nice gauge of a high end, if not a maxed out pair of heroes here. You can see that physical attack, Qing Mao has 50,137. Keira has 56,842. Of course, Keira does have the artifact weapon to increase physical attack. Qing Mao increases armor penetration. It is also worth noting that Keira only has 3 skins, while Qing Mao does have all 4 of her skins. So if Keira does ever get an additional skin, it may increase her damage. Most likely, though, it'll be a survivability skin. I don't want to speculate. When it comes to armor penetration, Qing Mao is in the middle of the road on of all the physical attacking heroes in the game at 16,590, and Keira's armor penetration is one of the highest at 28,495. This kind of speaks to their role. Okay, again, Qing Mao is more of a control hero. She does a ton of damage, but she shines whenever she's placed in a position to utilize her strengths. And just as a point of fact, just to kind of reiterate what I'm talking about here, when we're looking at Qing Mao's abilities, her gray ability, her primary ability, her ultimate, her green ability, and her violet ability, all 3 are control abilities. Her gray and green ability are modified by physical attack, while her violet ability doesn't have any modifiers at all. It's just based on level of Qing Mao and the level of the skill. However, having that pushback and the damage on that ultimate is important. I shouldn't say that the damage is nothing. It is a good amount of damage. The Spear of Dawn, her green ability, does do some damage, but again, that blind is so important, especially against physical attacking teams. But her blue ability has no modifier at all, much like her violet ability. Her blue ability is a straight health reduction of the enemy, be it an enemy hero, an enemy boss, an enemy, I don't know, adventure pet, who knows? Who knows what you might come up against. But her armor penetration stat doesn't matter as much as Keira's armor penetration stat. She does do basic attacks that are physical damage, and she does have 2 attacks that do, physical damage as well. So, having the armor penetration does matter. So the fact that she has lower than Keira in armor penetration doesn't really matter as much because she's a different sort of hero. Keira, on the other hand, looking at her abilities, just kind of referring back to her abilities again, all of her abilities, with the exception of her blue ability and her violet ability, with the exception of just her blue ability, all of her abilities are modified by physical attack, and all of her abilities care greatly about armor penetration. You have Blade Whirlwind. The more damage you can do, ignoring enemies' armor, the better. You have Enraged Soul, which has no modifier at all. It's just a flat speed increase, but, the more attacks you get in with attacks that ignore more armor, the better. So it kind of stacks. You have Dancing Blades, which hits multiple enemies whenever she does a basic attack, and the more basic attack damage she does via armor penetration, the better. And of course, Piercing Pain, this is the ability that absolutely cares the most about armor penetration. If Keira's armor penetration is higher than the enemy's armor, then she does more damage. She does extra damage. Keira does a lot of damage. She does a lot of damage. So I wanted to kind of show the screen, not to to prove a point or anything, but to just kind of chat about why the stats end up the way that they are, and maybe as a new player you're not sure, you have a hard time comparing and contrasting some of these stats whenever you're in the low 50s, or maybe you're not quite level 100 yet and you're not quite sure exactly what to do with Qing Mao. Maybe you've heard people talk about how awesome she is. Maybe you've heard a ton of people talking about how awesome Keira is, but the important takeaway from this video is every hero is effective, but most heroes have a primary role that they like to fill. And it is my opinion that Qing Mao, while she does a ton of damage, is more of a support to another damage dealer, like a Keira or a Kark or Ginger. Lots of physical damage dealing heroes in the game that Qing Mao can support. Whereas Keira is more of a primary damage dealer that you want to support with other supports as much as possible. You want to support Keira with Nebula. You want to support Keira with Sebastian, with Jet, with Qing Mao. All right. So hopefully I got you thinking about these two heroes. Hopefully I didn't, ruffle anybody's feathers, but both of these are very strong. They're both, like I said, they're both worth investing. Check out the linked video showing my Qing Mao tier list video and my Keira tier list video if you care to. If you want to watch those videos, I'll see you there. Otherwise, watching this video is good enough for me. I love you all. Good luck in Dominion.